Whether you got a Challenger, Charger, or a Ram truck, you've got a Gen 3 Hemi. But the question is always the same. How do we make more power? In this video, we show you 2 ways to improve the power output of your Gen 3 Hemi. Using this Junkyard 5.7, we first installed nitrous oxide from Nitrous Express. Oh no! Will those Gen 3 Hemi pistons survive? Not only did they survive, they thrived. We followed that up with a cam upgrade. Because let's face it, a Gen 3 Hemi already has a good intake manifold and good cylinder heads. All it needs is a camshaft. Our test motor was a Junkyard 5.7 liter Hemi from a 2006 Dodge Ram. When we first started this project, our motor was in a state of disarray, meaning there was a ton of stuff missing. Things like coil packs, valve covers, lifters, and even the intake manifold. And here's an important point. If you order a Gen 3 Hemi intake off the internet, make sure to clean it. Make sure to check it out thoroughly because our intake came full of piston parts. When these motors let go, they deposit those piston parts into the intake manifold. And if you don't clean them out and they get in your motor, you're going to have even more piston parts. While we had the motor apart, I also took the liberty of performing a valve spring upgrade. We replaced the weak factory valve springs with a set of 7/28 springs from Comp Cams to go with our HRT cam. So after getting that stuff all together, we got our motor put back together and up on the dyno, and we ran it naturally aspirated with a set of long tube headers. I got a video coming up later on to follow this up. We're testing the factory Ram manifolds versus a set of engine 5/8 headers versus a set of engine 7/8 headers. Cool stuff, so make sure to check out that video. After getting this thing up on the dyno, we ran it naturally aspirated with our Holley HP management system and 80-pound injectors. We wanted to make sure we had enough fuel for our eventual upgrades, which included boost. So if you haven't seen that turbo video, it's up. Check it out here. So we ran our motor up on the dyno, naturally aspirated. Then after installing our Nitrous Express nitrous kit, then we followed that up with a camshaft. So how much power did our Junkyard motor make? How much did it make with nitrous? How much did it make with a cam? Let's find out. After installation of our motor up on the dyno, we were able to run the 5.7 liter Hemi with the long tube headers, the Magnum intake, and our converted manual throttle body. You see the power and torque curves here. Run with that stock cam and long tube headers. Our 5.7 liter produced peak numbers of 367 horsepower at 5,200 RPM and 414 foot-pounds of torque out here at 4,100 RPM. The 5.7 offered a nice torque curve, exceeded 375 foot-pounds from 3,500 RPM all the way out to 5,100 RPM. I mean, this gives us an idea. Basically, the 5.7 Hemi for the Ram trucks was designed with towing in mind, so it was designed for torque production, meaning it had a mild cam and long runner intakes, although we did put on that Magnum intake, but that's every bit the long runner intake as the truck manifold is. And they both work equally well, I know, because I've tested them back to back, and they both work great at producing this kind of low speed torque. And actually, those intake manifolds, those factory intakes, work very well, even at much higher power outputs. They work really well. So now let's take a look and see what happens after we installed the Nitrous Express single fogger nozzle. Okay, you'll remember we ran our 5.7 Hemi Naturally aspirated with long tube headers and the Holley HP management system. Produced 367 horsepower and 414 foot-pounds of torque. After installation of that single fogger nozzle from Nitrous Express, we positioned that fogger nozzle out in the inlet tube in front of the throttle body, and that single fogger nozzle supplied both nitrous and fuel. In this case, we equipped it with a 52 nitrous jet and a 28 fuel jet, and we also retarded the timing by about 4 degrees down to a peak of 26 degrees in anticipation of the nitrous. So now let's take a look and see what happened after we activated that nitrous kit. Boom, big power gains. What I'm going to do, because a lot of people are getting confused by the horsepower and torque curves on these, we'll show those individually. We'll start out with the horsepower curve, get rid of our torque there. So these are the 2 horsepower curves produced by the NA motor where we made 367. And after we activated the nitrous, the power output jumped to 527 horsepower up here at the peak, but settled into a nice, that nitrous jet, the 52 nitrous jet, should add about 125 horsepower on the right combination. Now we pulled a lot of timing on this because we wanted to make sure that those kind of notoriously weak Hemi pistons would still withstand that power output, which they will, as long as the tune is right, and ours was pretty good. So we picked up, you know, the power from 367 to 527, and we got a nice solid gain, you know, after activation, basically all the way through the curve, meaning our tune was right, the nitrous system was supplying the nitrous properly, everything was working good. That's what we've come to expect from a Nitrous Express kit. They work really well. So this is the horsepower curve. Now let's take a look at what it did to the torque curve. After taking a look at the power curve, let's switch over to the torque curve after activating the nitrous on our 5.7 Hemi. Switch over to the torque curve here. So you can see it's a similar thing. We activated the nitrous a little past 4,000 on this, and or maybe a little past 4,500, or probably right near 4,500, and we get a big jump, and a little jump in RPM and a big jump in torque here. As you can see, the torque peak went all the way up to 544 foot-pounds at the spike there, and then a nice consistent torque gain all the way through. And this big hit is really what you feel if you've ever driven a nitrous car. If you haven't driven a nitrous car, you definitely need to. Everybody needs to have at least one nitrous deal in their life. It's really fun. You know, push button power, what could be better than that? The nitrous stuff worked really well on this Hemi, and our tune was right. We got good gains. The Nitrous Express kit worked well. So after running this nitrous, now let's take a look and see what happens when we add that comp cam to our Hemi. After running the nitrous on our 5.7 liter Hemi, it was time to upgrade the cam. So you'll remember that our 5.7 Hemi produced 367 horsepower at 5,200 RPM out here, and 414 foot-pounds of torque at 4,100 RPM. Now we had high hopes for the cam swap because the HRT cams, those guys have done their homework over there at Comp Cams, and also because the factory cam in this Ram truck was obviously designed with torque production in mind. It was kind of a mild cam timing, and what they were interested in is having a good drivability and a good torque curve down low. So this mild cam timing told us that this Hemi, we thought, is definitely going to benefit from even more aggressive cam timing. So here's what happened after we installed the comp cam. Take a look at that. Those are some serious gains. The peak power output jumped from 367 horsepower and 414 foot-pounds of torque up to 434 horsepower at 5,900 RPM and 439 foot-pounds of torque at 4,500 RPM. So we'd increased both the peak horsepower and the peak torque. And it's important too to note, take a look at this, below 4,000 RPM, we didn't lose any torque. In fact, we gained a little bit, between 8 and 10 foot-pounds, meaning that you won't get any loss in response or towing capacity or anything with this bigger cam. Even though you got big gains out at the top end, you still got good torque production down low. Take a look at the torque curve now. I mean, equipped with this comp cam, the 5.7 exceeded 400 foot-pounds of torque from 3,600 RPM all the way out to 5,700 RPM. I mean, that's a pretty broad torque curve. That's a nice, generous amount of torque there over 400 foot-pounds. You'll definitely be wanting to take advantage of that. So this thing should tow just as well and work just as well. All you'll do is have a much faster truck now with this cam upgrade. So let's take a look at what we learned from both the nitrous and the cam upgrade. And unfortunately, I did not combine the two. I did not run the nitrous after this, but we'll get into why in the conclusion. Okay guys, what did we learn? Well, the first thing is fairly obvious. Nitrous oxide works on any combination, even on the stock Hemi. Now, we did increase the ring gap on this motor, but the reality is that 100 or 125 shot will work even on a stock motor. So nitrous works, but so did the camshaft. I mean, that comp HRT cam improved the power output from 367 horsepower to 434 horsepower. That's a big gain, and did that without lowering torque down low. So all we got were gains. I mean, after all, this Hemi, it's just like an LS. It's got a good intake, it's got good cylinder heads. All it needs is a camshaft. So the question now is, why didn't we run the nitrous after we ran the cam? Well, there's two reasons. First of all, if you had 125 shot from a good nitrous kit like the ones from Nitrous Express, you're gonna add 125 horsepower. As long as the bottle pressure is right and the tune is right, that's what's gonna happen. Doesn't matter where you start, it'll add that much power. But more importantly, after we installed the cam on our Hemi motor, we wanted to find out how the motor would respond to boost. That's why we added that turbo. So that video is already up, so make sure to check it out. Hemis and turbos work really well together. I'm Richard Holder. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like and share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let me know in the comments what you think. I got the header video coming up. We've got Edelbrock intake and cylinder head upgrade coming up. Lots of cool Hemi stuff coming up. Thanks for watching.